So we've been listening now to data-driven business model, and now here I come and will give you a snapshot of a data creation business model. I work at ICA, and I'm an enterprise architect working with synergies across the different companies that we have in the group. And I think most of you know the company, have a relation to it. I mean, I have ICA customer loyalty card for both ICA, Coop, Axfood. I think most of you have the same. Most of you have a customer relationship with all those companies, and that just when you come to customer loyalty, that's what we see is one of the things that really are changing, and that we have to consider going further when we're talking about digitalization. Is data will really change the way we work towards our customers and how we work with customer loyalty. I will get a bit into it, but most of all, I will talk about how data is affecting the way we work forward at ICA. You know, our vision is we make every day a little easier. Data is not making our days easier right now, because we are really in the mode of understanding what the future is for ICA when it comes to data and digitalization. You know, we have a lot of store owners out there, and we have a business model at ICA that has been really successful in ICA in Sweden. We are the market leader, and so far it has been about getting all customers to our stores. Now when we look into digitalization, we see that digital business models, even in our world, will not always mean getting customers to the stores. And but the first thing that our store owners asks us when we're talking about data-driven companies and so on is, how can you use the data to get the customers into the stores? And we say, well, maybe that's not really the model for the future. That will change. But we'll see how what will happen from that aspect. The ICA Group itself consists of different companies. We have the food stores, we have pharmacy, we have bank, real estate. We also have the Hemtex and some food stores in the Baltic countries as well. And from a data perspective, this is really what makes this company interesting, because we are more or less gathering all around our customers in their daily lives. We want to get information of everything that you do out there. And I don't think it's going to stop there. That's what we have right now, food, pharmacy, banking, and so on. I think from a digital perspective, we will need to see that will grow. So far, it has been successfully in the competition against Coop and Axfood and so on. But what happens when Amazon and Google and other areas come in to our area in Sweden or in the Nordics? Competition will change, and I don't think this business model will last for a few years more. But we need to look into how will we use data to actually make a change into our business model going further. And that's my story for today. The data strategies that comes up when looking into digitalization from a group perspective. Data strategies, because I really see a lot of them out there. My role is really to look into the synergies that we can create around looking into each of those companies, what they are actually doing, and see how can a business model in the future work where we see data flows across all those companies. That means we have a legacy of working with data. All those companies have been working with data, data warehouse, BI, and so on, and not in a similar way. They're working differently with that. And now that we see that we really need to look into how does the data flow look like across the entire company, that's where we see big changes. Because consider that in our daily life at ICA, when I mean, we all hear all the time about this data-driven company. Data is a key for innovation. Data is a key for digital transformation. And I'm putting the word data here because absolutely we've been listening to digital transformation, innovation, and so on. But more and more we're understanding that data is really the key for all those areas, which have some consequences that we will come into. Internally, what we say is that we need to create digital business opportunities, work with e-commerce, cross-company business opportunities. How do we interact our business processes around bank, pharmacy, and the retail and so on to create new business opportunities, given it's also digital, of course. Process automation and so on. And what we say internally then is that, not say, but what we do is we created a CDO office. We have a chief digital officer. We have created an ICAX team, which is working solely with digital opportunities that really disrupts the way that we're working today, coming up with totally crazy ideas that might be crazy today, but will really change the market or change our situation in the future. We really see that it's not only about making new analysis just to get people more into the stores. We will see changes in the area. Then, of course, also we have. I'm an architect. I always try to translate all. I see or listen to okay, how do we do this? And we see this big data lakes, advanced analytics, IoT, AI, machine learning. There's a lot of new areas coming up there that we haven't considered before, and we have to consider how will we approach that. So with that in mind, when looking to how do I create a data strategy to take care of the digital transformation at ICA going forward, considering that we have all those companies that have to work together. Of course, the ideally would be really to look into the data flows from the perspective what is really out there that would be relevant for us to have. Where do we tap that information? How do we store it? What do we use it for? How do we integrate the aspects of BI data warehouse with all this fancy stuff around the data lakes, big data, advanced analytics, and so on? But of course, we would really like to see that we had a strategy for how do we find the synergies around the business processes? That which of course also means that business itself have to look into the business processes across the company. But from a data perspective, that's what I would like to see. That's what I would like to create. But I mean, we have a legacy. We come from an area or from a point where we can't create everything from scratch. We really need to see where are we today and what do we do it. Because what I see out there now is that, referring back to the data-driven company, data as a key driver, data as an innovation driver, and so on. Data itself has been so how would you say, so given that that's the real asset in what we do, so that we see that in all initiatives like a customer loyalty program, inside the program itself, they create a data strategy. Whatever new areas that comes up with IoT, AI, and so on, the initiatives are themselves creating the data strategies for that area. So what I come up with when looking into how do I create a data flow across the entire company, how do we tap it, how do we store it, what do we use it for, how do we stick all those things together, then I have to consider also that someone else is already working on pieces of that. Sorry. And is that good or bad? Well, you have to consider that we have a reality where we are right now. We have to consider that only the fact that we are working on those initiatives and those areas means that we have a lot of drive in those questions. If I would come up there with as an architect and just say, well, everyone, I want you to stop because I want to build everything from scratch, and this is what I would like to it all to look like. No one would allow that because that would stop things. That would stop innovation. That would stop people's ability to create new things. So we really need to look into a pragmatic, innovative approach. I say use case-driven growth of data lake, learning, adjusting, and evolving towards a strategic goal. So let things happen out there. They don't stop innovation efforts. Don't stop creative areas that are emerging, but more gather it together and see how this can be put together. And this is important from one perspective, especially when it comes to data lakes, for example, and how we work with data analytics. We are creating this data science lab. We are hiring data scientists. We are putting together teams and organization spots now, which will work with everything from technology to real funny and fancy algorithm creation stuff and so on. But and that's something that I'm really missing in the way how we approach this is that. How do we get the old-fashioned way of running things, the legacy that we have, how do we combine that with everything new that we see? I can't start everything from scratch. I have to refer to the legacy that we have and still be able to create what's going to be the future data-driven business model that we're looking into. And that's not easy, but that's, I would say, almost the only way of doing it. Just have some type of strategic goals of where you would want to be, but take those small steps that really makes an effort, makes a difference right now. Because that for sure, we have been doing some tests around advanced analytics and some hypothesis testings and creating algorithms and so on that goes far beyond what we've ever done in the data warehouse and the BI area so far. And definitely when it comes now to merging all the information across the companies, looking into all the information we have about our customers, both from banking perspective, food perspective, pharma perspective, and so on. It's magic what we see there. And you wouldn't imagine, but people are so predictable. Do you want to hear that? We're testing, seeing what we can do. We'll come into also what we can do in the future. But the thing is that we really see that there is something in this that completely outrages anything that has been there before. We see that we can do so many things that we've never been able to do before, and it's quite fantastic actually. One thing that I definitely want to point out when looking into data strategies overall across the company is understand that data will be in a lot of places. We have to consider legacy, we have to see the new. Not everything will not be built accordingly to the books. Everything will not be as you want it. But you can create this logical information model, at least explaining what you have and how you actually achieve it and how you intend to use it. And another thing that is getting quite obvious for us is that so far we have been living in a world where we thought that our point of sales is massive amounts of data. It's been huge. We are now understanding that this point of sales, considering just compare it with IoT data that we see is coming in as well. That point of sales data will be nothing compared with the IoT data that we are starting to gathering. And that's quite difficult for us to understand. Where we've been always in the world where, wow, we have so much data. How do we handle it? And we have to completely think different now. It's just a small piece, but it doesn't end there. Because take that IoT and whatever more comes, and your point of sales data, and compare it with the data that is available out there in the internet that will be used by us and others, and is available for us for doing analysis. From that perspective, even the data of point of sales with IoT, with whatever it comes up with, will be a drop in the ocean of information, will change dramatically. And that's for sure. And that's not going to happen 10, 20 years from now. It's happening now. And we have to prepare for that. I used to say inside at ICA that all the information that we are going to analyze, including the small parts that we have, where is that information located? In the cloud. Where do we need to have our information? Well, in the cloud. I used to say that 3 years from now, we will not have any data in the company. Will that be so in reality? I'm not sure. Not 3 years, but 5 years from now, definitely. We will not be able to have that information on premise in our locations if we really want to, if we really mean anything by getting into a data-driven company. Some of you would argue if I put competence into a data strategy, and no, I don't care about if it's a part of governance or a specific organization competence perspective and so on, but it will require so different types of competencies going further working with this. We are not prepared for it, really. We are trying to get ahead. We are trying to meet the requirements that these new areas means. But we're not really there yet. So and that's why I still have it as a part of data strategy, because we have to have a strategic view on how we will handle competences in a completely different way of working with data. Then, of course, we have some other areas which are more about legislations and things that will hinder us from doing things like GDPR. You all know about that. And from a customer perspective, I love GDPR, but from a company perspective, I really hate it because it sets a lot of boundaries on what I can and cannot do. But even more important, and where we see that we will have a lot of discussions going further, and where we, not only we at ICA, but in the market itself, when working with data. We can do so much with data. There's such a power in data, and we are so predictable. There are so much information out there about us, and combining with other information outside the company, data can be used in a quite harmful way as well. We're talking pretty much about, nowadays it's about news and fake news and so on. I think how data will be used, not against us, but to meet us as customers in the future will be something that we will see. Some companies will definitely do some things that they will regret. And that's one thing that we really have to consider. What can we do? Not from a legislation perspective, but what do we want the customers, what does the customers agree on us doing? And that will be a tricky question, because we can do much more than I think that I don't think that we, as a private persons, really have understood what will be what we will be able to know about people. Do we want that? But since I think that data is definitely playing a role in the customer loyalty perspective, that's really where will use the data. So now if I've been trying to scare you about what we can do, we can also do marvelous things. That's where we're going to use data really to create relevance to our customers. Create context to our customers. I mean, quite soon we will all have our Google Assistants and the kind of stuff that will do everything that you want. We'll book your haircut. We'll make sure that you get all your things into the refrigerator and so on. That requires, of course, that there is a lot of information about you, so they do the right things. But the limit of there, what do we want the digital world to do for us and not? That's a tricky question and very, very interesting one. So I mentioned before that in our efforts to reach this digital business perspective and data-driven business models and so on, we are working definitely quite hard in creating this digital officer organization. The ICAX that is doing fantastic things. We are creating this data science team and really trying to look into what this new world means for us. At the same time that we try to relate into the old stuff that to the legacy that we also have. And I know that the next speaker after me will talk about not building a data science team, I think, something like that. And that's exactly what we are doing. So it will be interesting to hear about why I shouldn't do it, because that's really what we are doing. So with that, I say thank you.